Present, the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica, commonly called the NPTAJ, is a non-profit organization that was formed on July 6, 2006, through the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, as it was called then. We serve as Jamaica's governing body for PTAs island-wide. The NPTAJ represents the interest of parents as stakeholders in the education system, and we play a very critical role in harnessing the support and commitment of PTAs, ensuring that they are empowered with the skills and resources that are necessary to build proactive and vibrant PTAs, plus a host of other benefits. And we provide oversight and supervision of these PTAs right across the island, and we provide guidance, support, and leadership training for PTA executives. Every PTA is at the core of the support that we provide. One second, did I press something? Okay. So we support the vision for education transformation, and we represent the interest of PTAs at both the national and the regional levels. We are the link between the PTAs and the Ministry of Education. So we are fully staffed by committed volunteers right across the 7 regions, and funding comes directly from membership registration. And we are, of course, dedicated to seeing improvements in our education system. Over the years, we have come to realize that parental involvement is critical to the full development of our children, and that involvement extends beyond the home. Our involvement is critical at all stages. We serve on a number of committees, including the National Council of Education, the Jamaica Teaching Council, among others, and we usually meet on a quarterly basis with the Ministry of Education and Youth, and as the need arises. Now, looking at the objectives and the powers of the NPTAJ, and although the list is not exhaustive, they are as follows: to provide opportunities to expose opinions, to make comments on, and put forward proposals for advancement of the education system, to liaise with the Ministry of Education and Youth or other government authority or ministry with national executive responsibility for education, and other state authorities in relation to the education system in Jamaica and in relation to matters that impact, whether directly or indirectly, the learning environment, the welfare of parents, teachers, and students. To lobby for reasonable changes or improvements on matters affecting the education system, to create a firm spirit of understanding and cooperation between schools on the one part and homes on the other, to promote loyalty and pride in schools, school property, and property of fellow students, staff, and all other property, including national monuments and public buildings, to promote and aid development of best practices of parents. Benefits of the National PTA: annual membership in a voluntary organization that provides an active platform and voice for the parents, teachers, and students of Jamaica. Provide training for PTA members and executives. Provide resources to assist PTAs in effectively carrying out their roles and functions. We collaborate with other organizations and entities to provide needed resources for parents, teachers, and students. We often host training workshops, seminars, regional and national meetings, and conferences. We also provide the opportunity to network with other parents, teachers, principals, community leaders, and national leaders. And we provide, of course, a nationwide network of parents and teachers working together on behalf of all children and youth. Looking at our roles as parents, it is an undeniable fact that as parents, we are the ones who bring our children into the world, and in this way we actively contribute to the development of our society. So it is our inherent responsibility as parents to provide for our children and ensure that they receive the very best care possible as we prepare them for their future roles in the further development of our country. It is also our responsibility to ensure that as parents, we become fully involved and remain active in our children's education and their respective schools for the duration of their studies. And of course, not just being present, but to offer encouragement and provide support to our teachers as required, and that in turn, of course, benefits our children. As we look at the importance of parental involvement in education, you see clearly the more involved we are as parents in our children's education, the better it is for the entire cohort of students, the particular class, in terms of their motivation, their behavior, and their grades. And encouraging parental engagement is more than common courtesy. It is one of the very best ways that we can create that positive learning environment for our children. And as to why we volunteer, because we're all volunteers, it's important because it enables us as individuals to help others in a selfless way. When individuals volunteer, we may choose to help people, support philanthropic causes, provide assistance to our local communities. And when you look at the needs and importance of volunteerism, it helps such a noble group of people, such as ours, to keep thriving and to do valuable work. We do work that makes a positive difference in the lives of other people. It also improves us as a people, including our own mental and physical health. Volunteering helps to reduce stress, depression, it keeps us motivated, and provides us with a sense of purpose. And we as an association volunteer because advocacy for the members of our parent body is critical to the success of our education system. Why we are here today? We continue to celebrate many victories. We would have first made submission to Parliament in October 2017 on the matter of the late addition of fathers' names to children's birth certificates. We were pleased at the recent announcement by the Registrar General's Department that there has been a significant increase in fathers' names now appearing on birth certificates, to the tune of 80% within a one-year period. We are present on several national committees, as mentioned before. We're involved in many stakeholder discussions with government and other agencies on issues relating to our children. So, in keeping with this mission, the NPTAJ today offers its submission to the Joint Select Committee of Parliament with respect to the examination of the Jamaica Teaching Council Act 2022 with the aim of ventilating these issues that affect the rights, job security, and licensing of teachers as professionals. With your permission, I will now ask our General Secretary, Mr. Donovan Main, to take us through the finer points of our submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Good afternoon, everyone. The NPTAJ is privileged to be involved and impactful on a decision-making way. We certainly need to protect our most vulnerable, our children, as well as to ensure that those who are in the business of educating them are fit and proper to do so. We fully endorse any action on the part of the government which seeks to protect our children and their educational needs. However, we must be mindful that we do not criminalize our educators or force a number of educators who do not possess the requisite qualifications and skills into unemployment. We urge that specific provisions be made for those educators to be upgraded. One of our concerns is that we must consider the impact of teachers' involvement in PTA and extracurricular activities. And if they are busy upgrading their qualifications, how much time will they be able to have available to help the kids with these things? It is the NPTAJ's submission that these issues highlighted herein be considered by the Joint Select Committee as it seeks to create a more expansive and effective bill that helps to transform the education system. The definition of a teacher. And I'll skip through the definition because we're all fully aware of what the wording has been, and it's been, I think, battered as much as we can. And it is fundamental that we take this. It's stuck, sir. Okay. Yeah, it's slowing up. Okay. Teachers are important assets and help to shape the future of nation builders. We do share the JTA's concern about the definition of a teacher, as this would remove about 2,000 teachers from the system. And just for clarity, I think this is the government system they were talking about, because they are private institutions who have indicated that it actually could be more for them. GISA has indicated that it could be more, but we are still awaiting numbers. What matters and what is whether they will be given the time and funding to meet the qualifying requirements in 3 to 5 years, so that we do not see a mass exodus of our best teachers from the classroom. On that note, we would like to know what is the applicable licensing fee. We all know that when we go for a driver's license, there's a figure for private license, for general license with PPV, everything like that. We understand, and we have been told, although we have here what period is covered, it should be for 5 years is the licensing period. But we must make sure that the cost is not onerous on a teacher. We have teachers in the ECIs who are at a low salary, maybe $500,000 a year, to as high as a principal in an A high school, which is just on about $6 million a year. Are they all going to be charged the same figure? Is something that we have to make sure that it's not onerous on those at a lower level. We kindly request of this committee to inform us of the budget associated with this bill, as parents will not be able to bear the financial responsibility associated with this bill, especially since we continue to encourage our parents to make their parental contributions to their respective schools as much as and where possible, because the quality of our children's education is of paramount importance to us, and the real cost is a factor we do consider. Some of our best teachers, many parents will tell you, are the ones who give of themselves, love our children, but are not qualified based on this new definition. How do we protect these teachers? How do we replace them if they leave the classroom? Do we retrain them or pay them to get these qualifications? If teachers are so busy trying to get qualified and stay qualified, as stated earlier, they will not have time for areas such as the PTA and other extracurricular activities in which they now take part or lead in the schools to enforce and encourage development among our children. We may be shortchanging both our teachers and our students. Teachers' involvement in such makes for the value-added education that is now the buzzword. As a body, we believe government as well as society should offer our teachers ample opportunities and protection for them to obtain the requisite qualifications within their subject area of specialization. We have heard stories of teachers who have qualification in one subject for which they teach at the grades 7 to 9 level as stipulated by the MOEY, but who go on to upgrade in some other area and upon receiving their credentials are still teaching their primary subject at a higher level. For example, Teacher X is a diploma-trained teacher with a specialization in Spanish and teaches grades 7 and 8 in the secondary school, but who upgrades and gets a bachelor's degree in guidance counseling and is subsequently given CSEC Spanish to teach. This should not be so. In such cases, we are shortchanging the students and we wonder why the passes are so low. Registration places a greater accountability on teachers. It allows this council to make its register of teachers open for inspection by the public. The Teaching Council Act 22 may seem a bit harsh and more punitive than anything else, but we believe Section 80 gives our teachers some leeway in registration and the definition of teachers, but it needs more clarity. We have put the current registration there, which you can all read. It's pretty clear in Section 80. And going forward, for a teacher, a person who immediately before the appointed day was registered under the Education Act as a trained teacher or an authorized teacher shall be deemed from the appointed day to be registered or enrolled, as the case may be, on the same terms and conditions, including suspension and period of registration as applied in respect of that person in the appropriate register or roll under this Act, and the registrar shall, as soon as practical after the appointed day, enter the required particulars of the person in the appropriate register. The only qualification we would add to this is that there should be a fixed date that should be set on here, whether 2 weeks, a month, if it's possible, a fixed date be applied for the current registration is what we would ask to be added. It says as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, where exactly? I was trying to follow you.
Page number 20, if you have a printed copy of this. It's
no, I guess I was looking at it. All right.
This one? Oh. Under the registration of teachers, the current registration.
Page 5.
There's 20 on that one. But in the Act, it's
on page 5.
It's on page 5 in the Act. So we're asking if we could have a fixed time frame put for the teacher to be registered, rather than have it open, because as it is now, it's just open. It could be 1 month, 2 weeks, 90 days. We don't know.
It's page 58 in the Act.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Section 80. Section 80 of the Act. Oh, no.
Chair, can I just clarify? Are you referring to the application process, the registration process itself?
No, it says under here, under current registration, under Section 80, it just says, as soon as practicable after the appointed day, and we're simply saying, can we have a fixed date or a fixed time frame?
So it is the process?
Yes, because it just says as soon as practicable, and we were saying, can we have a fixed time frame to ensure the transition takes place? If I may use a similar example, when in insurance, when the Insurance Act came in, they simply rolled over all of our registration. Immediately, just rolled it over. So what we had was in place was still valid until the new document was produced. So can we have we would ask a time frame we put in there, whether it's 2 weeks, 14 days, 21 days, 2 months, but a fixed date we put there so the teachers are not left in limbo. And where parents are there, you could have a teacher turn up at a school and being asked, by a principal or whatever, have they gotten their
So,
documentation?
again, Chair. So I went through Clause 80, as you indicated. So my understanding is that all teachers will automatically be registered when this new legislation comes into effect.
Correct.
So your issue then is them being placed on the roll.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. A time frame. We need to have it fixed.
So is it that you're saying immediately or you're saying a set time frame?
It's either or will work, but we just want to make sure that it is not left for up to 18 months, 2 years. I mean, we need a time frame that is immediately is perfect, but it may not be practical because, the council will have to do all the paperwork and everything like that to ensure it's done. So we're saying, yes, immediately is perfect, but if it's not practical, then can we have a fixed time frame as well? You understand? 14 days, 21 days, anytime you choose. Right.
All right, carry on, please.
Yeah. Some occupations require practitioners to obtain license before they can engage in the practice of that profession. Licenses are required for a wide range of jobs, including physicians, attorneys, nurses, pharmacists, engineers, vets, social workers, real estate agents, accountants, and others. So why not teachers? Anyone who engages in any one of these professions without having the proper license often commits a crime known as a practicing without license or similar term. In the US, for example, individual states each adopt their own licensing requirements and penalties, but all states have laws which punish practicing without a license. Why not Jamaica, and why not the teaching profession? In other jurisdictions, a license to practice an occupation is required. The term practicing means performing services for someone else. Licensing of certain professions serves to protect the public by ensuring that those engaged in these occupations can provide the intended service. For example, doctors treat people for illnesses and injuries, and if they do not have the proper training, education, and expertise, they could cause their patients harm. When you practice a profession, you hold yourself out as having this expertise. So we believe this is a fair call, especially for a profession that teaches all the other professions. Few other professionals touch as many people as teachers do. In other jurisdictions, anyone convicted of practicing without a license faces a range of penalties. These range from fines, incarceration, probation, to restitution. If someone is convicted of practicing a profession without a license, they will likely face a fine. The size of the fine depends on the kind of activity engaged. We also believe the fine of $500,000 is too low to act as any form of deterrent. This should be raised to $2.5 million for it to make sense. We have chosen $2.5 million, especially, and it doesn't mean just not practicing, but say, for example, somebody decides to submit fraudulent documentation to the JTC to be registered to become a teacher. That's an intent to defraud. And we think that person shouldn't be faced with a $500,000 fine, but a $2.5 million fine. As in my industry, for example, it's a $3 million fine. I think in real estate it's about $3 million, I think, or something. It's substantial. So it's not that we're saying we're going to turn our teachers into criminals or be overly punitive, but we also need to put a deterrent so that those who want to and intend to defraud the system are not treated like everybody else, like a teacher who, for argument's sake, is overseas for 6 or 7 months on vacation, and their license expire, and they come in, these teachers go for 6 months, 9 months vacation leave, and they come back and their license had expired 2 weeks ago. It means Monday morning they can't go back into the classroom because they don't have a license. that's not the person we want to put a $500,000 fine on. And these are some of the gray areas that we need clarity on. Because we want to see that those who are in fact intending to defraud the teaching profession, just like if you're a fraudulent doctor or a fraudulent attorney, you have huge punitive charge bills you have to pay, then I think the same thing should apply here. And we at the NPTAJ strongly believe that we need to look at it carefully and not have one set figure across of up to, but set specific dollar amounts for specific offenses. Anybody can walk into if they're a practicing teacher or decide to defraud the system, can go and get a $500,000 loan to pay a fine for $500,000 and Monday morning be back practicing as a teacher. Right? So how do we protect our children? A case could be heard in a courtroom in Sav. It doesn't make the news. The teacher is back at work on Monday. And this is a reality that we have to face here in Jamaica. We have to be realistic. So we feel that the fine should be re-looked at for some parts of the offenses, then it be increased to at least 2.5 million to make it a real deterrent. Addressing conviction, yeah. This bill will help to protect our students and parents based on sections 34A, which states, if the person is charged with or convicted before a competent jurisdiction in Jamaica or elsewhere of an offense of a kind specified in the condition, the person shall within 14 days give written notice of the charge or conviction to the council containing the details specified in the condition. Again, it's up to the person to report. Are they going to report it? You're leaving it to somebody. I'm just leaving a courthouse in, Monigue, being charged for an offense. Am I going to tell, if the principal doesn't know or another teacher don't know, you're leaving up to me to go and tell my principal and then report it to the council. We need to be put greater emphasis on protecting our students and also the good teachers, because it works for both of them and overall the education system. So we would like that particular section to also be re-looked at and not just leave it to the person to make the report. Teachers are entrusted with educating children to lead successful lives as adults. With such an important role, criminal background checks are a necessity for anyone wishing to become an educator. The NPTAJ supports the JTC Act 2022 in this regard. The fit and proper guidelines as outlined in Section 34 and the 4th schedules will also further protect our children, and it states, shall take into account the results of the criminal record check of the person, including any offense of which the person may have been convicted, the circumstances of the conviction, and the lifestyle and conduct of the person subsequent to the conviction. That's repeated. That's okay. These new sections remove from the hands of the Ministry of Education the dismissal of a teacher if convicted of a crime in court. Let's take, for instance, the case in point of a teacher who was convicted on July 31st, 2019 of assaulting a student at a primary school in Kingston. And despite numerous letters and meetings with the NMOEY, nothing has been done by the NMOEY to remove him from the school. That one is actually a burning issue for us at the NPTAJ. It still is. We're still patiently waiting a report on it. Yes, Madam Minister, we still haven't gotten a response from your office on it. And this started from 2019. We have 2 letters to Minister Samuda on it. The day the act was committed, a week after the act was committed, and the day the gentleman was convicted in court. And we have asked why he is still there and why he has not been removed. As Minister Sabuda said at the meeting we had with him in May of 2020, he says, Mr. Main, are you telling me that a teacher who assaulted a child and has been convicted is still teaching in the school? I can tell you that that little boy, when he saw the teacher come back into the school, he actually peed himself. He's still going under therapy with
Is the date
a
correct?
psychology because he's still...
Through your chair, is the date correct? 2019?
Yes, that's correct. And he's still teaching in the school, simply because the principal has not made a report to the board, and the board can't make a report to the ministry, and it has just been stopped. We now understand that we actually can make a report to the Services Commission to see if anything can be done by them. But as it stands right now, the Ministry of Education's hands are tied because the principal has to make a report to the board, and the Ministry of Education cannot force the principal to make a report to the board. Yes, that's the fact.
Mr. Main?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention, because as you're describing it, it really sounds strange to me, and that is something that I will take up back at the ministry. We have our counsel right here, Mrs. Gordon-Jones. No, I mean, it really sounds, I don't know if you're aware of it, but you're not aware of it either, or counsel is not aware of it.
All right, can we resend the documents
so, Mr. Main,
to you?
I'd love to get whatever documentation
I'll resend them to you
have.
first thing in the morning,
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Thank
and
you.
to your legal person as well.
Yes.
Because, as I said, it's one of the big things that we actually like about the new act, that it will remove all that hullabaloo, because once the conviction is confirmed in a court of law, then all that is required is for anybody to go down to the halfway tree court or the Savlamar court or anybody, get a printout of the thing and take it to the teaching council so that this person has been charged and convicted for an offense and is therefore should not be teaching in a school. So
please send us the documentation as soon as possible.
you'll have it at 8:31 tomorrow morning.
All right, thank you.
Is there an appeal involved here?
No.
Just
He actually pled guilty and accepted a suspended sentence and whatever else that goes with it. Pled guilty. Yes. It's front page, it was on the page, it was in the Gleaner, it was in the Observer, it was in all the papers, we have all the CVM and TVJ clippings on it, which I have properly stored, and I have a complete file on this matter, because it's important that we ensure that we actually, there are two other incidents, one at a school in Clarendon, where there's a similar situation, and another at a school down in, was it Westmoreland? In Westmoreland. Again, where assault by a teacher, and the teachers are still at work.
Through you, Chair, could I just, because there have been other entities that have come before us that are strenuously proposing that disciplinary action remain with the schools and the boards. So hearing this now puts a spin on, or a new light on the issue. I don't know if Mr. Main can give us, his thoughts on that proposal. I don't know if you've been hearing the other entities that have come before us appealing, for example, for the disciplinary actions to remain with the schools.
Yes.
And can I just get your comment on that?
Okay, we have discussed it at length, myself and Mitzi in particular, and based on the input we have had from a lot of parents. I'm trying to be politically correct here in describing some of the boards. We have boards that are chaired by individuals who are completely arrogant and ignorant of the Education Act, the rights of teachers, the rights of students. So we have a situation where how do we guide these entities? We have the NCE here, which is doing as good a job as they can. But what you have is what I call power-hungry entities, and I say this without I know the ecumenical, the churches and the trusts wanted to maintain their control. And my daughters went to a church school, and I sat on a church school board. I also sat on a government board. But the boards need a lot more training and a lot more investment in the persons on the school board in order for us to get the success that we require and the smooth flowing and the trust. Because we have, as in this case, and this particular case, the PTA president actually wrote to the chairman and wrote to the principal, asked for a board meeting, and nothing done. Nothing, absolutely. I mean, and what really upset me in particular is when I went to court, there were 7 teachers there to support him on this matter and cussing off the parents. I mean, literally, because it's halfway through court, you know, you can't hide. So the teacher is there and the parents are over here, and the teachers are cussing off the parents. Why is he in court? So for us, this act is, we need to be very clear. Straight to the teaching council. No board, no Ministry of Education. That is just, we just need to cut that out. Because I can tell you, the teacher somebody makes a report to the principal is going to sit on it, make sure they breach all of the regulations to ensure that it is thrown out when it goes to court or whatever is done because they didn't dismiss the teacher right. I mean, we have seen so many of those. But we also have to make sure that we protect our children. And we have to make sure of it. And we at NPTAJ, we don't want that old procedure where it now stops on a desk at the Ministry of Education for whatever reason. And as I said, the minister don't know nothing about it. But there are lots of things in education, and I've been through 3 daughters and been in high schools and for the last couple of years. There are a lot of things that a lot of information is withheld at certain levels. There are education officers who were former teachers who are now protecting a teacher. So we need to get rid of that. I'm not talking tales out of school. This is a reality. So how are we going to protect our children and protect the good teachers? Because we have some really, really good and committed teachers in Jamaica. And I say that because I just got the teacher's salary, and I must tell you, we have about 30,000 national heroes as far as I'm concerned when I saw those salaries. Because to work the hours that they do and deliver as much as they do, they need to be awarded. And supporting our students, yeah. So this particular matter, as I said, it's been a serious issue for us for the last 3 years. It's from incident took place in April of 2019, and we are in June 15th of 2022. 3 years later, Minister of Education has paid over millions to this gentleman.
Mr. Main,
yes, ma'am.
As I said earlier on, I await whatever information you have.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I'm not hearing you very clearly. You could speak into the mic so we could hear.
I'm indicating to Mr. Main that I await the information. Additionally, I will also apprise myself at the ministry of this particular situation.
Okay, Minister.
So if you please carry on, Mr. Main.
Yes. As it relates to Section 50, we think it should be amended to include persons convicted of criminal offenses We should add an extra section, section 50AV, which should read, has been convicted before a court of competent jurisdiction in Jamaica or elsewhere of an offense. If you look at section 50, it only goes to 4, and it leaves a lot of gray areas. We just want to make sure that once the person is convicted, that we can report that matter anywhere. Because we have teachers who have been convicted of criminal acts in the States. I had a case where a teacher was deported for drug dealing in the States, and they were actually teaching in a school, and it's only when I went to the board chair, and let me be very frank now, the board chair has known this for a year and didn't do anything about it. But when I went to him and said, if you do not deal with it, it will be on the 7 o'clock news. And the person was immediately suspended. I said, I have everything right here on my phone. If you do not deal with it, it's going to be sent out as a full press release to all radio stations and TV news outlets. And that's when the gentleman was suspended. He was actually called from the play field and brought to the principal's office and asked to leave the premises immediately. So we have to be wary, and as I was told that he's not the only case, but this is the only one I've had to deal with. And I was actually told by somebody that why am I endangering my life in doing it? He's a deportee. So maybe I was being stupid, but others said they didn't want to do it but they knew, but they just didn't want to do it. I just thought it was wrong. How can somebody like that be around our children? So for this section, we would like to see this section specifically put in to deal with the matter. The church and trust schools, as you said, wanted more autonomy to speak on these issues, but we disagree. The punishment of a teacher who has committed a criminal offense should be determined by this act, not by some principal, a board, or a political animal trying to protect their own. And when I say political animal here, I don't mean politics. I mean, you and I know that our Catholic Church has its issues, so we know there are priests who have gotten away with murder in Jamaica for argument's sake. But the reality is, this is what we're facing.
Mr. Main, I'd like you to kind of contain your...
Okay, let's refrain. Let me retract that.
Please, Mr.
And
Main.
There are churches and other institutions who have had issues, but were never addressed clearly and properly in Jamaica. Let me put it that way. And the world. So if we want to look on it, we need to be very careful and make sure that our children are protected. Because as parents, this is what we are about.
I'm Catholic and I feel offended. What is my friend?
Which is why I said I expanded it to include all religious matters and everything. So we shall move on from that, please.
I take it, Chair, that Mr. Main is withdrawing a specific reference to a particular denomination.
Correct, yes. I've withdrawn it, yes, to a specific, yeah. Yeah. Just general in dealing with the matter. So I would rather that we not go down that route of having the trust schools or the church schools or even the government be involved in dealing with these issues. The government schools or private schools where applicable. Our general recommendations are: we urge the committee to look broadly at the way the enforcement of the JTC Act may negatively impact the 2,000 plus teachers who do not have the requisite qualifications based on the definition posited in the bill. Keen attention must be paid to the creation and/or strengthening of mechanisms to offer these teachers deemed unqualified to upgrade and meet the requirements. The fine outlined, as we said, should be increased to 2.5 million to act as a deterrent for specific charges and offenses. That the prescribed budget and source of funding be shared with the stakeholders in education and the public at large to address any financial concerns, because we don't want a situation where you get your school bill to be paid, and after your tuition, sundry expenses, you get a little miscellaneous one, and that miscellaneous one is to help teachers with their registration fee. I can assure you that if I get anything with that on it, me and that school, we're in court the following morning, because I'm not paying it. And if they can't keep up my child, then that's a problem. Because no cost, and finally, we expect no cost from this bill should be passed on to us as parents, because any costs that are going to be incurred by the teachers for their licensing, their registration, anything like that, is something that should be borne by them or some other entity, but not us, the parents. And we are very serious about that. Finally, it is the NPTAJ's submission that these be considered by the Joint Select Committee as it seeks to create a more expansive and effective education system and the professionalism of those entrusted to teach our future generation, our children. I thank you very much.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Minister. And I just want to say thank you so much to the presenters today from the NPTAJ. And I'm saying thank you from different perspectives. The first that I was worried that we were only hearing from stakeholders who were on the teaching side, and it is important. And I just take this opportunity, Minister, to say, can we find a way to help some of the student bodies, like the National Student Council, to still give us their thoughts on this bill, because it is important that we hear from all different stakeholders, and we haven't heard from students, whether it's at the US students, whether it's some student bodies, and they're not used to presenting to us, so it may mean us reaching out to them and encouraging them to do so, because it helps them to participate in national processes, and we get others. So I take this opportunity to ask that we get the perspective from them on that. I just had two questions. The first one with regards to, I was trying to make notes while you were speaking. You said teachers are so busy if teachers are so busy trying to get qualified on page 18 of your presentation and stay qualified, they will not have time for areas such as PTA. But you did not give a suggestion as to what you think the solution is. Because we need them qualified, but you're saying they need time for extracurriculars. So I would love a suggestion, a solution to the problem there. That's the first one. And I agree with your suggestion for a specific time frame for Section 80. I wouldn't go with the suggestion of immediately because of the processes, but a specific time frame, I would support that. And my question to you is, on page 23 of your presentation, where you're asking for the fine to be increased 5 times what it initially was, what do you say to the representatives who have come to this committee before and asked for it to be lowered? So that's another question. Or removed totally. What is your response to them? And then on page 28 of your presentation, where you speak to section 50, where you're asking us to add has been convicted before a court of competent jurisdiction in Jamaica or elsewhere. I support the idea of it, and I went back through the bill while you were speaking, and I realized that is not handled, where someone can report that they know that this person was convicted elsewhere. But I think it should be up to the legal team to then say, convicted of what? Because you can be convicted of littering. That should not stop you from teaching in a classroom. So it's for the legal persons to say to us, how will they phrase it to allow for convictions that have a relevance to what we're talking about? It can't just be a blanket
conviction, and I hope you are in agreement with me for that. That it can't just be a blanket one, because littering, there are acts that are just, can you ban somebody from teaching because they littered? Yeah, so I'm hoping that you can see.
You're not going to answer.
No, I'm not going to ask you your opinion right now. I'm just saying we need to take that in consideration. Though I would suggest you not answer, but I really want to thank you for these comments. And
if we may,
yes.
I can address on page 18. As you know, almost all extracurricular activities are supervised by teachers at the schools, which are done outside of school hours. So a teacher who would normally, and I'm speaking from a specific teacher now, who like a Cub Scout teacher, who will be after school with the Cub Scouts from 3 until 6, 7 o'clock. And now, because they now need to get qualified, they'll probably be at extra classes at that time. So they would have left school and gone somewhere for training with a Hart or Monique or wherever teachers college to get the requisite training, which means Cub Scouts will drop from the extracurricular.
Completely understand, but I'm asking for a suggestion, because you're also assuming that it's a large majority of existing teachers who need to be upgraded. And I remember Minister saying it's not what it was before.
But remember, the teachers, based on what we have, the discussions we have had with the teachers through the various grades from ECI all the way up, is that each time they get upgraded, they get a bigger salary. And we can't knock anybody for upgrading themselves. But when they now feel the pressure that they think they need to, because that's what a lot of them feel, that's how they feel based on the position the JT has taken, is that it's putting undue pressure on them to be upgraded, because it's in their financial and best interest to be upgraded. So they're now going to give up those extracurricular activities, because this is the feedback we're getting, that they will give up the extracurricular activity to be upgraded, which means a child who would normally, say for argument's sake, would be playing chess or playing lacrosse or whatever, who would now have that as part of their extracurricular activity, applying for a scholarship in the States, would not have that available to them anymore.
Right. I'm wondering if we're worried.
And the only people who can fill that in would be us parents. We don't have the time. I leave work at 4:30. For me to pick up my daughter at 2 o'clock, I literally skip lunch, get her, drop her home, and head back to the office.
Understand completely as a parent myself.
Yes.
I'm just saying we may be thinking there's a problem where there is not a real problem as yet. Because what we have to do is look at it statistically. What number of teachers, because we first have to look at the teachers who need to upgrade to qualify. And outside of the early childhood category, I don't think we have a large number in the primary or high school for it to become an issue. And in the early childhood, we don't have a lot of extracurricular as we do. Minister, I stand to be corrected by you, but it's not an issue with the numbers of people who are already qualified. And I'll leave it to Minister to respond as she...
I agree with you. As far as I understand, within the teaching profession from primary to high school, you don't have a lot of what they term pre-trained teachers in the system. Mostly at the ECI level, you would have that situation, early childhood level. Yeah.
Chair,
and Mr. Main, sorry, can he respond to...
Sorry, no, this is on a point. Chair, could the Ministry of Education provide us with the relevant numbers on it?
Sure, we will, member.
Okay, Mr. Main, and the question I had asked on page 23,
right,
what would you say to the others who have come here to present to us, who have said the fine should be lowered or removed? Your group is asking for it to be multiplied 5 times.
Yeah, well, what we're saying basically is that for some acts that will become committed by persons trying to become a teacher or acting as a teacher, where it's just straight fraud, the person has actually produced fraudulent documents, submitted fraudulent documents, we don't think that person should be treated the same as somebody who has just forgotten to renew their driver's license. It's just, you can't, you shouldn't. They have taken the time out and energy out to actually defraud the profession and commit fraud with a motive and an intent. So and as I said, we have been asked, and this is our position, we think they should be treated differently. But as I said, we think that a person whose license, I mean, you and I are driving on the road. Our driver's license expired. The police officer gives us a ticket. But if I have a fraudulent driver's license, I get fined something else. I'm arrested on. It's the intent that is what we should be looking at. So those who intend to defraud the system should be punished separately at a higher level. Okay.
Can I?
And then you were saying section.
Members, 1 second. Ms.
There's
Sherland,
one more, ma'am.
Ms. Sherland, did you want to come in here?
Oh, you said one more section? That was it? That was okay.
1 second, Mr. Main. Ms. Sherland.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Awesome.
Just to provide a little clarification or further information in relation to the suggestion at clause 50A, and it would be a Roman numeral 5 to indicate that a complaint can be made if a person is convicted of an offense. I think the committee needs to consider 59.6, which says where it is proved to the council by a certificate of conviction from the registrar of the Supreme Court or the clerk of the parish court or from an equivalent officer from a court of competent jurisdiction outside of Jamaica that a registered teacher, licensed teacher, or an instructor has been convicted of a disqualifying offense. So perhaps we could use similar language to say disqualifying offense, because that is defined in clause 2 as an offense for which the penalty is a term of imprisonment of 2 years or more. So perhaps we could use that to assist us to amend clause 50.
So you're saying, are you saying, Madam Chair, just to what she's clarify, so you're saying put in the clause at 50, but the issue I raised about the type of offense, use the term disqualifying, okay, but you agree that there's nothing else there now that handles the issue they raised?
Yes, Senator. I agree.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify, through your chair.
Okay.
The fourth schedule deals with fit and proper. And in that fourth schedule, it raises the issue of criminal conviction. So wouldn't it be true that, as exists in the current bill, that fourth schedule would capture criminal offense generally, where conviction exists?
Well, Senator, the thing with clause 50 is that it can be admitted that there may be circumstances where a person is convicted of an offense and it's not general knowledge. So the council may not be aware of it, even though that is supposed to be a public thing. But then by putting it at clause 50, then we create the opportunity, if anybody is aware that such a person is convicted. Of course, you would have to get confirmation of that from the court.
Madam Chair. Just to add, Chair, just to add to that point, Chair, because in terms of the fit and proper, it would only come up when there is an application or a renewal generally, but it would not take into account currency. So if somebody, commits an offense or is convicted today, we would have to wait for the renewal process to get that person out. So I do agree with it being included in the legislation generally.
All right, Mr. Main, and then Member Morgan, and then after that, Member Miller.
The reason why we wanted it completely clear is that the disqualifying offense, as defined here, causes a problem, as in the case of, that I mentioned earlier, where the courts gave him 8 months suspended. In that case, he's back at school. So that's why we said we don't want that we wanted to get clear of this definition, completely away from it, and put it specifically in there to ensure that we do not have a situation. Because remember, whatever the judges decide on is subjective. They can decide that although the man is supposed to get 5 years in prison, the judge might say, okay, he has a good family record, he has kids, let me not send him to prison for 5 years, but I'm going to send him to give him a suspended sentence for the next 12 months, and after that he's free. Based on this definition of a disqualifying offense, he's back at work on Monday morning. Amongst our kids. So that's why we wanted it specifically in Section 50 to deal with just that matter of a criminal offense. So either you do that or redefine what is a disqualifying offense. So we need to relook at that, because we have to, at all times, protect our children.
And the child was a victim in this case.
Madam Chair?
Sure. Go ahead, Member
You know,
Morgan.
I'm very happy that you raised the point, because we have seen in our jurisdiction where persons have committed some very serious crimes and get 2 years less suspended sentences. And based on how it is written, a man could beat a child with a pipe and get a suspended sentence, and the council would not have any power to this, because it would not be a disqualifying offense. So I really think that we need to really revisit that, because I have seen people who have been convicted of gun crimes and get 1 year suspended sentence with a fine. Right? So would we want a teacher who is convicted of a gun crime in our classrooms? You know, so I think we really need to look carefully at that definition of what a disqualifying offense is. And I think that there's precedent in other legislation. For example, what is it for politicians? 6 months? I think it's 6 months for politicians, right? I don't know if you can tell me. If I'm convicted of an offense, it's 6 months. No, but why is it that the standard for me is higher than somebody who's taking care of my child? So if I'm convicted of an offense exceeding 6 months, I cannot sit in the parliament. But you're giving teachers 2 years. And then why is it that this sentence has to be custodial? Because many fraud cases are not custodial, right? And what if they're convicted in the civil courts of embezzlement of millions of dollars? Or what if they're in the civil courts found that they have embezzled millions of dollars from an entity? What happens there? So we know that he's a thief, but we can still employ him as the bursar at my school. So I think, I know you could say that it's a Pandora's box, but I know that there is precedent in legislation, in other legislation, to deal with it, because remember that teachers are prescribed persons under the Child Care and Protection Act, which means that they have a higher duty of care, so the law treats them differently. So if the Child Care and Protection Act treats them here, then the Teaching Council Bill cannot be lowering the threshold and treating them less. And I think I want to put that as something that we must consider. And I want to thank, you see, that's why you guys needed to come, you know. That's why you guys, we needed the perspective.
It's never late for a shower of rain.
We needed I have some others.
That's not a political statement either.
It was deliberately said.
No, you raised a point, and I thank you again. I really thank you for that. You raised a point. If they're busy upgrading, how will they participate? You see, one of the challenges I've had with the conversation in this JC is as if upgrading is a burden. Upgrading is not a burden, it's a responsibility. So, in other jurisdictions, it's pride of place for you to have these qualifications, right? where you're no longer marketable just in Jamaica, but you're also marketable internationally. And I don't know if it is a material concern based on what I'm understanding to be the quantity of teachers who are not at that level. Because most of our teachers have gone through Teachers College, and many years ago, we have started the degree program. And teachers also have continuing education, where in order to ascend in the school. So I don't know if I would associate myself with that point regarding extracurricular. The other question I wanted to ask is, I don't know where in the bill it would allow the schools to charge you for teachers' continuing education. I mean, it couldn't be an auxiliary fee, developmental fee or building fee.
No, yes. What I was alluding to, sir, is that if you, each of us at the beginning of the school year, you get a voucher from the school, and in there are various things.
So you would want
tuition, PTA dues, sometimes miscellaneous.
So you would want it to be clearly stated in the bill that parents should not bear the burden of your educational development?
Not just, no, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that if there's a fee to be paid by the teacher, we don't want it to be passed on to us. Because we should not be because what you're going to have, is that, say you have an ECI, and I have one here, and I was discussing with a parent at that school, and the principal's position is that depending on how expensive it is to register the children at the school, the monies will be, that expense will be passed on to the parents. So we want it to be clearly stated because we do not want the monies, as with everything, the buck stops somewhere. It either stops with the Ministry of Education or it stops with us as the parents.
I understand what you're saying, and based on your explanation, I really take your point, because I've seen some vouchers, and we're coming up to
there
voucher
you go,
season.
sir. So it's the vouchers, that voucher thing that you get three vouchers, and you see one that says miscellaneous, and you're asking what it is for, and nobody's answering you, and then you're here in the corner, boy, this is supposed to be for the registration of the teachers. I'm not supposed to pay for the registration of a teacher.
Well, just to give some numbers, I asked the ministry to give me some numbers. There are 862 pre-trained teachers, meaning they don't have a degree, right? They didn't go to teacher training schools, so 862 pre-trained teachers and 1,639 diploma-trained teachers, so they have a high school diploma and they're teaching in the school system. So it's about 1% of the total. High school, yes, you still have, about 1% of our teachers would not have the required qualification.
Thanks, Minister. The other
point, but we're using 1% as an arbitrary number. But 1% if it means that if that 1% is not in school for argument's sake, it means somebody else has to take up the responsibility. So,
no,
yes, and that's what I'm talking about. So
I
if
don't
you
think
have,
we're challenging the reasoning, we're not challenging the reasoning. We're just articulating the quantum. Okay. So we do take your point, and your point is well valid. If I may, through the chair. Yes, we do. The next thing is, what's your profession, sir?
I'm a bum. Joking, I'm an insurance consultant. General insurance consultant.
But you have to be licensed to perform.
Yes, I do.
What if you should...
$3 million.
What if you should... What if your license expires and you go out there and act in your profession? What is the penalty?
$3 million.
So then why is the... So you raised a point about different levels.
I pay $3 million and my company pays $3 million. So that's $6 million.
But you are not impacting children to the extent that teachers are.
Yeah, go ahead. Go again.
So here's the reasoning. So you spoke about tiered fines, right? Is either you're licensed or you're not licensed, in my mind. I mean, I don't think we're going to be unreasonable and say, tomorrow morning, as the bill is passed, if you're not licensed, you're going to be fined. But a part of the challenge I have with a lot of the reasonings that has been coming out of the JSC, and I associate myself with your position regarding the fines. I may not associate myself with the quantum, but I do associate it myself with the increasing of it, is that there is this perspective that I find where we do not want to allow people to do the right thing because we think that they may not be willing to do the right thing. So we create these side roads for them to escape. Oh, well, you have grace period and all of those things. And I think that if we send a signal, because a majority of teachers, I think, want to be licensed and registered, and I think if the bill gives them the reasonable time between passing and implementation, I don't know if you need to have a tiered. If your license expires, you're not supposed to teach. What do you think? Okay.
I may be wrong, Mr. Main, but I don't think that was your line of argument, because I think he agrees that if you are not licensed, you should be fined X. I think what Mr. Main was trying to articulate was the fact that there are other types of criminal activity that may come into the discussion that have not been taken into account, that he thinks should maybe be disaggregated and given additional penalties or fines.
Through the chair. Through the chair. What I wanted to allude to is that, and I use my industry as an example, we had a situation before the new act came in 2002, where people came to Jamaica and supplied ACII, which is a qualifying exam, documentation. And 3 of them were actually CEOs of major broking firms in Jamaica. And by the time it was discovered that the documents were fraudulent, the company had to fire them. So it's the same way. So they submitted fraudulent documentation to be licensed by the Superintendent of Insurance, as it was known at the time. So that was a deliberate act. What we're saying is if a teacher provides fraudulent documentation, like they take this document, photocopy it, it was your degree, and they put in there that they are now qualified, and they submit it. They can't, they're deliberately out to defraud the system. So those persons should be fined a higher figure at a higher level than somebody who simply didn't renew their license.
I agree with you, but wouldn't that be in regulations though? Would you be, so one of the risk that you face when you put fines in primary legislation, it is called, is that whenever you need to increase the fines, it can take years. So would you think that a ministerial order or a ministerial regulation would be a better approach rather than putting it in the body of the bill, so that as time goes by, if the fine needs to be increased, it can be increased through probably a positive, what they call it in Parliament, Minister? Affirmative resolution in Parliament, which gives it more flexibility to deal with new offenses that might occur, or inflation or anything like that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but we need to send the message from now. It's like you have...
I mean, like, the regulations will come with the bill.
Yes, but we need to set those from now in the bill so that in 20 years, when 2.5 million might be worth 20,000 Jamaican dollars of today's dollars, that it's already there.
No, man, what I'm saying is, if you put the static fine in the primary legislation, which takes a very long time to amend and update, rather than put it in a regulation which a minister can update with an affirmative resolution in Parliament, where she can increase the fines over time with a simple coming to Parliament and doing it, would you support that sort of regime rather than just having it static in the primary legislation, but rather than putting it in the regulation? I think maybe... my learned colleagues can explain what I'm trying to say better regarding how you could put it in the regulations and it could work.
I see the puzzle on your face, Mr. Millen.
Hold on, Natalie, she's about to.
Oh, sorry.
Madam Chair, through you, just to indicate that even though the fines are stipulated in the Act or in a bill, in primary legislation, we could still put, say, in the regulation making provision that the minister can increase the fines subject to affirmative resolution, so it would still have the scrutiny of the Parliament. So it's not such a big hurdle, even if at this point in time you stipulate what the fines are in the Act. Right. Or you can set out the fines in a schedule, if you like, and then put a provision to say that the minister can amend the schedule subject to affirmative resolution. And so it wouldn't, the process to change the fines wouldn't be as long. Yes.
All right.
Okay,
no,
understood.
I have,
Understood.
Member Miller and then Member Gale. Is it on the same? Go ahead,
through you, Chair, thank you for the indulgence. I don't think the issue really is where it is placed. I think the issue is that the offenses are created so that at least we all know that these are offenses and this is what the fines are. I think that should be more important than where it is placed at this point.
All right, Member Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to bring your attention back to page 18. And to my colleagues mentioned it earlier, I know in the past, when I was young, Madam Chair, that long time ago, when I was actually doing education in college, there was a policy in place that all untrained teachers should go back to school to get trained, right? And the principals and the chairmen of the boards should not engage persons who are untrained teachers. And we understand the skill aspect of it, right? Where you have skilled persons who will teach a particular subject. We understand. And then there's also provision for that as well, for persons to do a one-year diploma course in education. At the end of the day, you cannot be an insurance executive and you're not trained with a certification. And I wouldn't want a teacher to be teaching my child that is not a trained person. Then we'll be shortchanging our children, right? So I'm not in agreement with, the issue of persons going back to school and it might rob from the extracurricular activities. Because bear in mind as well that persons who participate in extracurricular activities, the teachers that is, they are senior teachers, who majority of them should be, I'm telling you, majority of them should be senior teachers, should be senior teachers that are paid additional for those services, right? So there are universities now that are online that you can learn in the evening after the school hours, but it's very important that we upgrade ourselves. It's very important in the States as well. When teachers are going to recertify, they have to do some courses, even courses out of the field. You have some teachers in the system now, they got their degree from day one and they have not uptooled themselves. And even the students in the class are more advanced than they are. So I'm not for the issues that you have brought on this slide about untrained teachers. And I'm of the personal belief that teachers are to be trained in the field. Also, if you are lecturing at the university level, if you're doing undergrad, you cannot have your faculty with only 6Es because UCJ will never accredit that degree. you must have at least a master's and or PhD, which is extremely important. So it has to be across the board. We cannot water down the profession. And we are training people for the future, and we have to ensure that they are trained.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, we're not saying that we're watering down or want to see a watering down of the teaching profession. What we're saying is that the teachers need to upgrade themselves, but it has to be in a structured way where, and I'm using examples in schools that I've had to deal with, you have a lot of the extracurricular activities are not taken up by senior teachers. It's the teacher who is there part-time, the teacher who is there who is, at what we call not as fully qualified, who take up a lot of these activities. It's not like when you and I were in school, where if I did cadet, it's a senior teacher. It has been passed down because the senior teacher is too busy doing lesson planning, supervising, doing a million other things. So a lot of those extracurricular activities and other stuff are done by people who are not qualified and full senior teachers. When I was in school, my principal was the person who took us up at school challenge training. When I was in school, I was in primary school. School challenge. It was the principal that did that with us. You tell me one principal now who has time in primary school to take up. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be an untrained teacher who's more than likely going to take up that extracurricular activity. So it's just that things have changed, and we have to be realistic that we make sure that we get a rounded teacher, and a rounded teacher gives us rounded students.
Might I add that the importance of this particular aspect, as raised, is to ensure, remember, it's PTA, we do not want to create a situation where the teachers now have to opt. Is it participating in PTA activities or extracurricular activities or studying? But some amount of flexibility be provided that they still get to uptool and upgrade themselves without us losing them in the essence of what we engage in.
Madam Chair, through you, I just think we're worrying about something that don't need to be worried about. It's only 1% of the teacher population that needs to upgrade. I never said want to upgrade. I said need to upgrade. And remember that before, teachers, unless the rules have changed since I left the classroom, to go off on study leave, a teacher needs permission. And I don't think the ministry would be approving leaves willy-nilly and leaving the classroom, whether it's the extracurricular or the mainstream, unattended. So I don't think we have a real issue here. It's only 1% that need to upgrade.
Through you, Madam Chair, you keep referring to 1% that need to upgrade, but there's another larger percentage that want to upgrade. Now, when you add the two entities, because a teacher who wants to upgrade is helped, when they're doing their studies, and I hate to use Immaculate as the example. We had a teacher who sat with us on the HSA committee, and when they wanted to go on to upgrade to her master's, she gave up her position on the committee. So a junior teacher had to come on the committee with us. So it's that sort of thing. So it's not just the need to upgrade, but there are teachers who want to upgrade.
Can I close?
Mr. Main, sorry.
Can I close?
Go ahead, member.
No, I'm going to close, Madam Chair. Thanks very much. I'm with you, but I'm saying to you, I think that's a more personal issue, and that's a time management thing, right? The posture of the NPTAJ should demand the best from the teachers and ensure that the teachers are trained.
Can I I was a bit confused.
Yes,
I was identified.
I'm sorry, Member Gale was next. Did you indicate as well, Member Brown? Okay, after Member Gale.
I'm glad that you're here. And I was a little concerned that this awesome body would not have been here. And being a parent who still have a child in school, I'm confident that I have some representation. And I'm saying that because, you know, coming back to what you said on page 29 of your presentation, keen attention must be paid to the creation and or strengthening of mechanisms to offer those teachers deemed unqualified to upgrade and meet the requirements. And I agree with the view that education is lifelong. And if you are a teacher pushing for development and qualification and matriculation and accreditation, then you too must upgrade yourself continuously. And whether it's, you see, the 1%, I'm not so hung up on 1%. It could be 1% today, and we allow it to be 2% tomorrow. I share the view that if you have an untrained teacher exposed to a student, then there might be problems. There might be problems. So I agree with that. Now, you indicated that as a body, you have several boards and committees, and you meet regularly with the Ministry of Education. And I assume that in the meeting with the Ministry of Education, these are consultative meetings geared towards policy directions and the like. What I want to ask is that you would have made a representation around the conduct of teachers. And I want to ask do you meet and consult with the trade union that represents teachers? Do you have consultations with the JTA or the Association of Principals? And is it possible that some of these concerns that you would have raised here, you could interface with those organizations to raise the same concerns and make recommendations? So I want to ask those questions. Thanks, Chair.
Might I respond, Madam Chair? Yes, Senator, we would have started discussions with those entities, JTA and JAPS. JTA also has a seat on the executive committee of the NPTAJ. When they are available, they do attend. There's a lot that has been going on, so from time to time they might not be able to be present, but we do have communication with them from time to time. But we are building that relationship and deepening it as we go along. Thanks.
1 second. Could I go back to your concern, Mr. Main, about extracurricular activities? And because I just checked with the ministry, because in my mind I thought extracurricular activities were timetabled, and they said in some schools they are timetabled, in some they're not. Some schools dismiss formal classes at 1, and then the extracurricular activities are done up to 4 p.m. or earlier. So, and if it's timetabled, it means whoever is teaching it is getting paid. So it's not all voluntary work that's out there in all schools. I'm not saying it's a perfect situation, but there is some timetabling of extracurricular activities. So I don't know if that, answers any or allays any of your fears.
Kind of, but we still need to get some clarity, because as you said, it's some. And as with everything else, it's the bad news that reaches you first. As I said, truth is still putting on its pants when lie reaches on the other side of the world. And in this case, we get more of the bad news than. So we'll await more information, because we have arranged meeting with all those entities, including the private schools, for who we have a meeting supposedly next week, for us to hear from their side more on a lot of the things that they expect where the JTC bill is. They have given some indication, which is what we placed in here.
Ask them to make a submission then as well.
Make what?
We'd love to hear from them as well. No.
Submission.
Not the church school. There's an association of independent
It's
schools.
Jamaica, the independent schools.
Yeah. They didn't come.
So we're speaking on behalf of the PTAs in the private schools. So we have met with them. I've been in 4 regional meetings with them. So we got their feedback as well. So what we have submitted here is basically on behalf of all the parents, both government schools and private schools. Right? So we've been, it took us a while. As you can understand, we're the largest group. We have a minimum of about 500,000 parents, local and overseas, because I got 2 calls from overseas parents. You know what we used to call the barrel parents, who only send barrel down? Yeah, I got 2 calls. So they wanted to know what was going on, so we have their interest. And we have all the schools, which is not just government schools, but we had private schools as well. So it took us a long time to get here where we are, because we couldn't do it in the 4 weeks that we were designated to do it. But we're glad we're here, and we're glad we have generated some interest.
Member Brown?
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank the National Parent Teachers Association for coming and for raising some issues. But I just want to clarify. I have a couple of questions. Let's start with the clarification. As I understood it, all the organizations that came here support the view that those who are involved in fraud should be dealt with more severely than teachers who may have missed the registration date and so. Am I correct that that's your position also? So it's not that you are differing from the others who have come before us. Am I correct? Good, thank you. Sorry? You're not disagreeing. Sorry, I'm asking him the question. He's about to answer. You wanted to answer?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're on the same wavelength. All we're saying is we want the fine to be increased, to be higher.
I understand that. But the principle, it's not that the others who came here, as my colleague implied, other different views. No. Right? So that the JTA and the Teachers Council and others were of the view that we should treat differently those people who are fraudsters, choppers, yeah, as against those who might just have missed their date. So I'm glad you clarified that. The issue of rehabilitation as a government principle, as I understand it, that's a principle of this government and previous government, that people who are convicted of an offense should not be condemned for life. We know of a case, for example, of a person who was a child or as a young adult committed an offense, one involving drug, for example, but a professional association allowed that person to be part of that noble profession. Is it the view of the PTAs that a teacher who may have offended in the past should never, based on one strike you're out, never be able to teach again?
I think it would depend on the severity of the crime. As with all offenses, rehabilitation is possible, but where it concerns assault, rape, I don't know, abuse, just any abuse of a child, I think as an association, we would find it, despite any amount of rehabilitation, wrong that that person should be allowed to get back into the classroom.
So you are saying a specified list of offenses
Correct.
and not a
Not a
total
whitewash.
ban,
No.
so that rehabilitation should be a factor. Because I believe Schedule 4 speaks to the nature of the offense and the conduct post-offense. You would not be opposed to the language in Schedule 4 of this bill?
No, we're fine with it.
Good, thank you. Now let me ask you this now, because I raised it about teachers, given the stridency of some on this committee about one strike, you're out. What about parents? A parent who attack a teacher. Should that parent be banned for life? Physically attack a teacher, for example.
Banned from being a parent?
No, banned from sending the child to the school.
But the child didn't commit an offense.
Sorry?
But the child didn't commit an offense.
So the parent of the child, how should this, let me put that out. How should the school relate to a parent of a child? What do you mean him can't answer to you?
Okay, the
Sorry,
logical... No,
just a second, because I'm asking questions, because I have to decide.
Senator...
No, let me finish. I have to decide how I vote on this bill, right? So the question is, how should parents, should the bill, since it's dealing with teachers, an attack on teachers, how do you think the bill should deal with parents who attack teachers?
But Senator Brown, the bill is not about parents, it's about teachers.
I see.
So if a parent attacks a teacher, that's a criminal offense which is dealt with under the courts in a different matter. We would not want to get involved in that. Our recommendations, where it has come to us, has been the PTA representative will go to the board and recommend that they find a school that is where that student can go comfortably and the parent is okay going to that school. But that's another matter for the courts of Jamaica to deal with, not for us as the NPTAJ.
No, I'm not asking for you, I'm asking for your attitude, and you have explained that to me. Sorry, why I don't interrupt people when they're asking, and I ask the courtesy to be given to me. I ask the courtesy to be given to me to ask my questions, right? So I'm paying you the respect that you're due as all guests, so I don't have too much problem with what others here may say. I have my own views. So, because you represent parents and teachers, I'm asking the question in that context, and you have answered that maybe it may lead to a different school rather than the existing school where the teacher may be. Would that apply to a teacher who, in your case, offended in school 1, being moved to school 2, or that teacher should be condemned forever?
Are you asking me if a teacher has attacked a parent in the school?
No. A teacher who may have committed an offense, who may be convicted, say assault, corporal punishment, for example, that wasn't to be done, and that teacher is convicted in the court. Should that teacher be disqualified from all the other schools in the country?
He's a teacher, and once he has been convicted in the courts, what we're saying is he should not teach. But rehabilitation, depending on the offense, there can be due consideration down the road by the teaching council. I mean, as far as what we're seeing is the act is something that's fluid. What was teaching 50 years ago or 25 years ago is not the same today. And 25, well, I wouldn't say 25 years. The way teaching is becoming quite crazy and evolving. What could pertain in maybe in 10 years, teachers and parents won't have to interact because I'll be at home as a grandparent sitting with my grandchild, teaching them at home then they won't be in a classroom. So we have to, I understand what you're trying to say, Senator Brown, but I think we have to be very careful that we don't open a can of worms and start making huge assumptions at this time where those matters are concerned.
Well, I wasn't trying to open a can of worms. I was just trying to respond to your presentation. Let me ask you this also. Is it your view that boards and the schools as employers should have no role in the discipline because one or two schools may not have been very effective and efficient in disciplining teachers?
We didn't say that boards should not be involved. We're saying specifically for criminal convictions, a report can be made directly to the teaching council, is what we're saying, just for specific offense. If the board wants to discipline a teacher, a student, all of those things, it should basically continue as is. But where it becomes a criminal offense, then I should be able, as a parent in a school, report it directly to the teaching council.
And that is allowed now under this bill. Am I correct?
It's still, no, it doesn't. It's a gray area. It's still not fully clarified, which is why we're asking for specific matter, for it to be specifically addressed in this bill.
So you want this bill to be able to say that if there's knowledge of a criminal offense committed by a teacher, that a report can be made to this. Doesn't 54 address that, no? You say no? All right, cool. But I just want to be satisfied that you are not removing the boards, because the way you spoke was a little strident about the church schools and so forth wanting things. You're not saying the boards and the employers should not deal with the criminal thing, but you want a complement to be able to report it to the Teachers' Council. That's what you're saying?
Correct.
Good, because it came across to me, and the cheering I heard was as if the boards and the employers were not acting firmly. I don't think that's what you intended.
No, but the fact is that when the boards don't act and nothing is done, there's no other avenue available at this point in time.
Not even the minister?
Well, the minister has to go back. The minister has to go. So if I go to the minister will still have to go back to the school's board or principal to provide details to be sent to them. Whereas as it stands, I can simply go, what we're asking for, I could just go to the court, get the printout of the offense that was committed, and take it to the JT Council for them to deal with. But the minister would have to go back, and then, depending on what they get, they will then have to make a different appraisal.
And I have the view that where, for example, a teacher receives a suspended sentence and goes before the Teachers' Council, should the teacher be given due process before the Teachers' Council?
Definitely.
At clause 80, you spoke about as soon as practical phrase in the clause. Or you have the view that the bill should deem those teachers who move over now to be registered as against waiting for some time, whether 2 weeks or as soon as practicable. Because they can be deemed and therefore taken to be just carried over straight. Would you be opposed to deeming?
No, we have, as I said before, immediate is fine by us. It's just that as it stands now, there's no time frame that's in there. So either immediate, 1 day, I mean, let's for argument's sake, this bill becomes effective on a Friday evening. You know, so it's immediate. As far as it could be immediate, but we need to see a specific time frame. Immediate, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that lag time, they're still legal. As I said, as happened in the Insurance Act, we all moved over. But I didn't get my license and photograph thing until actually 6 months later.
Do you have a view, does the PTA have a view as to the period for which the license should last?
We're comfortable with 5 years.
We're comfortable. So that there wouldn't be need for annual registrations of teachers?
If what?
There wouldn't be a need for annual registration?
No, we think 5 years, just like a driver's license.
Yeah. And finally, the issue, do you think there should be a grace period in the bill after the expiration of a license or registration, so that you don't end up with a situation, as you explained, somebody coming back from abroad, miss it for 2 weeks, or the teacher license expiring or registration expiring on the 31st of December, and school resuming January, first, second week of January, but the person had not re-registered. Would you support a grace period?
I think I would rather leave that to the regulators, simply because it would depend on the notice given to the teacher for renewal. For argument's sake, if 3 months before the driver's license is expiring, teacher's license is expiring, the teacher is notified that the license is up for expiration. And then a month...
that there should be a notice in the bill. That there should have a notice to teachers.
Prior to it being renewed.
I see.
So it should eliminate the grace period.
That's fine with me. It's just that you're saying the bill should have a clause which says that 3 months before the expiration, the Teachers' Council should notify the teacher that your license is going to be up X time.
But I think we should probably leave that to the regulations than it being necessarily in the bill.
You as a stakeholder come here.
Yeah, okay.
And since we're going to draft the bill, I'm trying to get a sense of where you stand.
Yes, we think once a notification is given to the teacher in advance of the expiration, then that should be fine. Maybe 2 or 3 notifications. So 3 months before, a month before, 2 weeks before, whether it's via email, text, whatever, because they would have all that information for the person, as happens with other entities.
Those are my questions, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the group for your presentation. When compared or measured against the other submissions from the group, your opposing or different perspective is appreciated. It will certainly help us when we are at the final stages of the deliberations. On page 23, the issue of penalties. I am very clear that you are saying that you would want the fines to be moved from 500,000 to 2.5 million. I'm also understanding that you also believe that there should be the fines or the offenses should be separated. So my question is, for the offenses that you deem not so harsh, less offensive, offenses that are not a deliberate attempt to defraud, what are you suggesting as the maximum fine for that? Or is it that you want 2.5 to remain?
For those offenses which are not fraudulent or attempt to for deception, those can remain at the 500,000, because it's up to 500,000. So that's subjective. But for those specific offenses where it's straight fraud being committed, then and the intent is a factor, then we say 2.5.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Member Morgan.
Just clarification. So we had a previous conversation about qualifications and I would love to be corrected. I think that there is a minimum requirement, right, that a teacher has to have in order to be licensed. That's one. But then the section 11, let me start over. So there is a consultative process that is outlined in the bill, particularly section 10 and section 11. So I'm actually responding to your concerns about the whole issue of licensing and continuing education and so forth. And a part of the consultative process is that the council has to consult with groups like yourself in framing here it says the council shall, with the approval of the minister, develop a framework for continuing professional development of registered and licensed teachers. And the council, as the council thinks necessary, consult with such bodies that are, in the opinion of the council, representative of majority of teachers. Maybe what you should contemplate, I think, is for section 11, 1, is this 2B, it should not be just representative of a majority of teachers, but it should also have an organization like yourself in it, in contemplating the professional development of registered and licensed teachers.
Sir, we're a volunteer organization. You're putting more work on my plate.
No, it's not work. It's a consultation.
Yes, but we also, as a group, have 2 representatives on the council. So those persons would then take back to the council.
So does the JTA.
No, JTA have a whole heap of people.
That's the point. So I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So my vision for the National Parent Teachers Association is probably a bit more expansive than you probably are contemplating or the reality exists. You represent the largest sector of the education system, yet you comprise the softest voice. Natalie, can shift a bit for me? You comprise the softest voice, and I think the lesson that I have learned in this whole situation is that there needs to be some consideration to increase your voice, because the contribution that you've made today are extremely material to the improvement of the bill, and I know colleagues, many of them have been educated like myself about things. So I'm thinking, as a part of the consultative process, I think that there should be the insertion of the Parent Teachers Association as part of the consultative process as the council evolves and as the council makes adjustments in terms of framework for continuing education and so on. And I think that's the point I wanted to make, that I think the NPTAJ needs to push for that. And if I'm sure the government is willing to help you, because you do get help from the government.
I'm glad you brought it up, As Mr. Siaga would say, it takes cash to care. So if we get more funding from government, we can do more. But as it stands, we're a volunteer organization. We get funding from the registration of schools, and as such, it is demanding on us. I'm sure if you look around the corner, you see the JTA big building. We don't have that kind of funding. So it's all volunteers. All of us here are volunteers. None of us are workers, employees. My position that I'm in is supposed to be a paid employee based on the Constitution, but we don't have the funds to pay somebody to do the work. So we, as volunteers, we do as best we can to get the things done and to, reach out to the minister. Thank God she is usually available to assist us as best we can. But we can only do so much and no more until we get fixed a bigger income and can employ better people to take up some of these responsibilities.
Understood.
Chairman, just the point Minister Morgan made. At 1H of the first schedule, it says 2 nominees of bodies appearing to the minister to be representative of the interests of parents. It's already in the bill, Minister.
No, but on a point of order, there are 2 levels, member, and the gentleman did allude to the fact that there are members, but the law also states that the council shall consult with such bodies that are, in the opinion of the council, representative of majority of teachers, when the fact is also that the teachers are represented on the council as well. So if we're going to follow your logic, we should not consult with the JTA because they already have representatives on the board. Right? So what I'm saying is, and what I was suggesting to NPTAJ, that they are such a body that represent the interest of a majority of the stakeholders in the education system.
Point taken, sir, and I just see what you're trying to say. What you're saying is we're not National Parent Association. We're a National Parent Teachers Association. So I take your point that yes, we could be added there if you think it's necessary or ought to be added there along with the teacher, because we do represent teachers who are not necessarily, who have reached out to us, who are not necessarily members of the JTA. So I accept, and if you do put us there humbly, we will be quite happy to serve.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Member Rodriguez.
Question I have for you. You are the representative, you just made the point, Parent Teachers Association. So you represent teachers and parents. Question I have for you. If ever any part of this bill, when it becomes law, has to side with one group over another, whether it be the children, the parents, the teachers, the school bodies, any of the stakeholders, where should it always fall?
Protect the kids.
Protect the kids over every other entity?
Everything else.
Okay, thank you.
All right, hello? All right,
Just one, the reason I ask this question is because unlike some of the other presentations that we have received, you represent different categories of stakeholders. Your stakeholders are not singular. So I think you are best positioned to answer the question that I asked. And while you're not here representing children per se, you have said we must always err on the side of children beyond everybody else. And so that's why, Minister, I go back to where I started today. I think we need to make an effort to get at least 1 or 2 bodies representing children to present to us. I don't know if the clerk for the committee can ensure we do get that.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. Let me thank all the members. Thank you to the representatives from the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, Mrs. Mitzi Harris Dillon, Interim President, Mr. Donovan Main, General Secretary, Ms. Alva Bigby Edmond, Acting National Treasurer, and Mr. Stuart Jacobs, Vice President, Membership and Field Services. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was long anticipated. I believe you delivered. Thank you so much for being here to give off your perspective. And as was said earlier by Member Rodriguez and others, these sessions that we have really sharpen our minds. And I know that at the end of the day, this bill will be better for it, representing all the views that we would have heard over the time. Thank you so much. You're free to go.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, members, we have two minutes from meetings held. Hold on, let me get on to my is that me? May 19th and 31st. So let's take May 19th. Are there any corrections, any additions, any edits? Anything that's missing, anything that should be there? Let's start with page 1.
Sorry, just to confirm, we're doing the one from May 19th, you said?
May 19th.
Yes, okay.
Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5, there's a misspelling of Rodriguez on 1, 2, 3, in the where it says questions, answers, and comments, the second paragraph. Senator Campbell Rodriguez, you seen it? The misspelling of the name? Are you on the right? You see where it says question, answers, and comments? Are you seeing it? In the second. Oh, let's see what's wrong with that.
It's with a Q and an
Sorry.
S.
Sorry, I don't know. Maybe in mine it was. Page 6. Page 7, where you have subclause 29(2)(c), the last sentence. I think it should read, she questioned the intent, no, sorry, she noted that if the intent of the bill was the removal of existing, you probably want to insert teachers there, that it needed to be done in a fair and equitable manner. Page 8 of 9, the last paragraph in the middle, starting, he suggested the addition of a period whereby a current teacher could be authorized to teach, or automatically licensed to teach. The final page, page 9, ask for confirmation of the minutes for the meeting held on May 19, 2022.
So moved, Madam Chair.
So moved by Member Rodriguez, second by Member Gale. All right, we'll take the next one for the meeting held on May 31, 2022, beginning with page 1.
Page 2, Chair.
Page 2.
Page 2, under call to order, committee is spelled incorrectly.
Right.
Under confirmation of minutes, the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, April 21. So, minutes plural, which means it attracts were, not was. Under introduction, the last line that speaks to lack of autonomy. She cautioned on potential conflicts resultant from the lack of, include of, between lack and autonomy. Page 2.
Thank you, Member. Page 3.
Page 3, Chair, under question, answers, and comments, the second one. It starts, Member Green sought clarity on the concern from UTEC. I believe maybe we should try to indicate what the concern is for context. Page 3, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Member. On that same page as well, At the very last sentence, it says, Member Miller stated that a person must possess a minimum of 1-year diploma in education. That sounded incorrect to me. Huh? Yeah. Do you recall what you had said, Member Miller?
There's an option there for teachers to go and upgrade themselves at a minimum of 1 year for a diploma.
No. Can you state that again? I'm not understanding.
I said at the last meeting that there is an option that is available for untrained teachers for them to go and upgrade themselves.
But did you say a minimum of 1-year diploma?
No.
No, okay. Page 4.
Page 4, Chair, under the general questions and answers. The second line that starts, Prof. Giles clarified that volunteer teachers and persons who contribute to the training of students formally or informally or without pay. I think that sentence is incomplete.
Right, I think I saw that too, and I think it should insert were those, so it would read, Professor Childs clarified that volunteer teachers and persons either are those who contribute to the training of students informally or without pay. Yeah. On same page, we go down to the second paragraph. In the middle, it says, he suggested that the definition might be, the next one. Professor Barrett said that the definition of instructor needed clarity. I would insert regarding the persons that were covered in the category. And further on, to third paragraph, Dr. Johnson hoped paid unlicensed, I would put and untrained teachers, or hope that paid unlicensed and untrained teachers were not excluded. On to page 5. Page 6.
Page 6, Chair, question, answers, and comments, the first paragraph. The last line, Member Hamilton noted that there were general standards that should be followed, along with standards that were based on the level of teachers within the profession. I think that's what I said.
Where is that, Member?
First paragraph, last line, under questions, answers, and comments. So Member Hamilton noted that there were general standards that should be followed, along with standards that were based, so include were, on the level of teachers, include teachers within the profession.
All right, thank you. Page 7. Page 8. That's it. That's for confirmation.
So moved, Chair.
Okay, so moved by, seconded by Member Miller. All right. Any other business?
Can I, before we go there, Minister, following up on Natalie, would it be possible for the Ministry of Education to be asked to reach out to some of the youth groups, such as the National Student Council, the Youth Advisory Council, to Jamaica, yes, and the Guild of Students and those?
We will reach out to them. Also of note, you would have gotten a printed copy of the matrix of submission. right, for you to review. I'm sure we will add to it based on...
Minister, it will be updated to include today's.
Right, but in the meantime, you could begin reading.
Yes.
And ensure that everything is captured, you know, in terms of what changes, amendments or so that you would like to bring next time. In terms of the next meeting? Hmm? Okay, the next meeting is proposed for next week, the 27th, 22nd. Sorry, I don't see it. Sorry, I don't see it. I'm sorry, I don't have it. I don't know how quickly we'll be able to get those other groups. We will definitely invite them. But in the meantime, we could start the matrix. Yeah. What time? Wednesday, what the date? All right, so the next meeting, next Wednesday, at 2, the 22nd at 2 p.m.
No, Chair, that Senator Gill and I have a meeting that has subnational significance on that afternoon. Oh, it's 23rd, Kawan. And we have that other meeting on the 23rd.
No.
You're proposing 22nd?
Are we? I just said the 22nd.
Oh,
I don't know if we could have it earlier. Are you leaving? Go ahead,
we're going
Miss
to do it at that
Anastasia.
time.
Oh, it's Anastasia. Go ahead. All right. So are we all agreed? 1 minute, members. Members or technical persons would like some time to have a retreat to go through the matrix. So they are asking that we meet again on the 30th at what time? 10 a.m., 30th of June. What day is it? No, Thursday's not good. Hold on. Thursday's not good. Yes. No, it will be out because the technical persons. But then the following day would be a Thursday, and I know that's not good for some members. In the morning at 10. Member Morgan. In the morning at 10 on the 30th. It is. At 10? I would say 1 at most. All right. So Thursday, 30th at 10 a.m. Thursday, the 30th at 10 a.m. We right, so members, remember we only have one parliament, and dates are booked really for other committees, and that's why we have to take what we get there, several other committees. So we will start at 10 and we'll try to get out of here as quickly as possible, or cover as much as we can in the shortest possible time. All right, the date of the next meeting is Thursday, June 30th at 10 a.m. All right. Yes. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Minister, there was one other question I had. It's quick. In terms of consultations, will this committee do any outside consultations, whether virtually or otherwise? Like, for example, when we had the Portmore, we had I am asking the...
Meeting adjourned by Member Crawford. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you at the next meeting, June the 30th.
What if they knew that you abused her? Her family?
Mr. Jones,